This video is about what we've done, or some of the stuff we've learned about DevOps in Sprint 3 for this class, and how it relates to Databricks. The first thing I'm going to do is explain a little bit why managing code and doing DevOps related activities is relevant to our project. Machine learning operations really includes 3 simultaneous sets of operations. We have model operations, which includes every time you train a model, keeping track of its design, parameters, and maybe success or accuracy, things like that. Then we have data operations, which is managing all data resources and then the features you might derive from those resources. And then also development operations, which is structure for code. So as you write code, you have different branches of code being managed by a Git provider, and making sure that as you release that code for users, that you have that sectioned off from a developer. In addition to just having the 3 different operations being managed simultaneously, there's also different environments and assets that need to be managed within, or different stages, I should say, within each of these sets of operations, right? So you got 3 operations, and then there's different stages that each of these operations is going to be at throughout the machine learning operations service or management lifecycle. And so not only do we have each of the 3 types of operations going on, we also have multiple stages for each of these operations. And so that's why there's kind of a lot going on with MLOps. That's really the takeaway from what I'm talking about right now, is that there is a lot to do and manage all at once with an MLOps service. Now I'm going to switch to demonstrating some of the DevOps content that we've practiced, learned, and how it relates to Databricks. So most of the DevOps related, like code management operations, isn't really something provided by Databricks, but it integrates with Databricks. So I'll show you from Databricks what that looks like. So here you can see I'm back in the Databricks platform or service, and right now it's not displaying correctly, but there we go. Okay, so you can work with the repositories, GitHub or any other Git provider repository. You can add up here and then make it available in Databricks. So right now, let me show you the setup really quickly. So this is kind of a really simple example of how repositories might be set up. I've tried to create some structure here that might exist for like a large scale project when you have different teams working on development, teams working on testing, and teams like a separate team working on production. So we can't really truly replicate that in this small time frame and without a lot of structure to work from. But I've tried to mimic something similar to that at a really low level for now. So what I mean by that is here, for example, and this is a repo that would in theory be available to everyone in the environment. As you can see multiple users listed here. This should be available to all the users because it's in the general repos folder. And so you can see here that I've set up this little testing repository that is currently in this folder linked to the main branch of this repository. And so in the main branch, you can see that there's all the files that would be in the original repository on GitHub. And it generally right now contains almost identical code to what's going to be in the other branch that I'll show you in a second. The only difference is this right here, this folder, is something that GitHub uses to actually, if you want to set up automation, which I'll explain more in a minute, all the automation scripts pretty much go in this .github folder. So you'll see that in this repo, in this branch of the repository, but not in the other one. Anyway, I'm not going to be working in this at the moment. I'll come back to it later. So now I go back, and this is generally, so in addition to a main repository that's kind of like a production or staging branch that most people can see, or even a development branch that most people can see, you'd usually have, each user would have their own branch to develop on. So even if you had a development branch for an entire team, usually each user is gonna create their own feature branch, I've seen it referred to as, and that feature branch is where a single person will work on something and create a new feature that you can later merge to the overall development branch. So again, this example here is really not reflective entirely of what a proper ML operation system or setup would look like, but has some similar design features, I guess. Anyway, so now I'm going to demonstrate, it's kind of the outline or the layout of what a project might look like, or an MLOps service might look like. But now I'm going to show you some of the development operations that we worked on in this sprint. So if I go into this repo, this is the development branch of the same repository I showed earlier, and you'll notice that that .github file or folder is not here is really the only difference at the moment. But now let me show you how, as you work in one branch, you can set up services that manage the code in GitHub. So as you make changes in this repository, you can push the changes to GitHub where your versioning and structure is really set up, and that's where some of the DevOps related material is functioning. So I'm going to I actually opened a file in here already that I'm just going to go over here. So this is a file that I opened. This file is really simple. It just has a couple sorting algorithms implemented, and it's meant to be like a source file where a developer might create a new feature. So you can consider these sorting methods as features that a developer may have created. And this stuff has already been added to the main branch of the repository, so I'm not going to change any of that. I just added this one comment, and although it's not a new feature, it still shows what's going on when someone does create a new feature. So I've created this 3 new lines here that are different from the original dev branch that I copied or pulled from GitHub, and it's not included at all, and it's also not included in the main branch. So now I'm going to show you, if say these 3 lines here are just a new feature, what happens when you want to push this new feature to the main branch, which you can think of as a development branch that the entire team works on, or like a staging branch where you might have a version of an MLOps platform that you're testing, or an MLOps service, a machine learning service that you're testing. So that's kind of what this branch we're going to push to is supposed to represent. Okay, so I made this change. It saves automatically in Databricks, there's nothing to do there. But now I'm going to go back to this repo tab. You'll notice it opens up to where I'm at. This is the folder where this file is at, but I'm going to back up here and go to this, back to the branch. So once you in this repository in Databricks, you can actually manage or connect, more so manage the repository from here on GitHub. So I'm going to click this. It opens a little interface showing our change. And so now I'm going to commit this little update, added demo. So I'm just going to commit this irrelevant change basically, and push it to this dev branch on GitHub. That's what that just did. So you'll see up there it says it's successfully pushed. And so now, right here. So it offers to allow me to create a pull request on the Git provider, which in this case is GitHub. This whole repository is set up on GitHub. So it's going to allow me to create a pull request to actually pull the new code, which is just the comment, to a new branch that would have, a different stage of development, basically. So I'm going to create this pull request, and you'll notice it's going to open GitHub, and this is just I think this can be automated as well, but I haven't figured out how to do that. But anyway, so this is just going to create a pull request that allows automatic testing and some automatic process to happen, and then creates a pull request that someone else can approve, and then actually allow the changes we just made in this dev branch to go into another branch of code. So I'm going to finish this pull request, not going to make any comments. And so it initially says that it's all set, but you'll see here that some checks have not been completed now. And so what this is an example, a really, really simple example that I'll show you of how you can do automated testing and other automated processes through GitHub with GitHub Actions. So it still hasn't finished running. Well, now it just did. So I'm going to go here and go here and open up this test and show you what it is. It's a really simple test that I created. So I'm going to open that here. Okay. So you'll notice we're on the Actions tab now, and there's only one job that I created, and I'll show you that file in a second that has that job. But basically, you'll see that the tests I created in the job passed. So yeah, so this is something I defined, tests with PyTest, and you'll see here that all of them say passed, and that's how GitHub knows that the tests I created passed, or are good to go, that the update that I pushed from GitHub from Databricks has code that's good to go and can be merged, basically, is what's going on here. Now let me show you this action really quickly. So the action, let me go here. Basically what I'm showing you now is the code that performs that action that we just were looking at, the checks and the tests and things like that. So it's just this file right here. Okay, so it's a YAML file that sets up basically the procedures that you want GitHub to do upon certain activities. So for example, what we just did was a pull request to the main branch. And so on pull request to the main branch, this test and merge GitHub action runs. And let me walk you through some basic stuff here. So some of this is set up. There are multiple places, so GitHub offers to run GitHub services in a container for you. And some of this is setting up that GitHub container, or container to run whatever you're requesting. You can also set this up on other machines as well, but I haven't looked into that yet, so I'm not sure how to do it. But let's go, oh, this is the bottom of the page. So this is set up mostly. The only thing really happening here is that on this last two lines here, these are setting up and running a PyTest on the main on any pull request repository. So like when I created a pull request, it takes the new code that I'm hoping to include into the main branch and runs PyTest on the entire repository, which basically means, from what I understand so far, it will just go find every full file that contains the name test in it, basically, and we'll just run the code in there if there's PyTest functions or methods set up, like testing methods, basically. And so I have two files in the moment, which I didn't show, but there are two files that run tests with PyTest, and so both of those run. As long as all the tests pass, then that's how we see the previous, let's go back here, and that's how we see all checks have passed, right? So that when that PyTest line runs all files including tests, and as long as they all pass, that's how this shows up. So the last step, and I believe I can automate this as well, but the last step is just approving the merge request. I believe as long as these two both turn green, there's a way to automate this approving the merge pull request, but I haven't gotten there yet. So I'm gonna hit merge pull request, confirm, which manually is not that bad either. And now you can see that we've merged that comment line into the main branch, which again, this is a really simple demo of performing GitHub actions and development operations type activities. All we did was add a comment, but we can scale this up using similar setups for other activities, much more complicated activities later. So this has been merged, and let me just show you real quick. If I go back to the main repository, I don't know why that got so slow all of a sudden. So now let me show you the changes got made. So we're in the main branch. If I go to source, sorting, and then the sorting.py, you can see that our comment is in this new file. And so we were able to, in this video, we added a couple lines to a file in a development type branch, or like a feature development branch of a repository, and then pushed those updates to the original pushed those updates back to the same dev branch, the feature branch. Also created a pull request from GitHub. So we did this pull request thing here. And after doing the pull request, we saw that tests were run automatically and completed the pull request by approving the merge, and saw those updates in the main branch here. Now, last thing I'll mention is if we go back here, so it's really convenient. You can do most of this stuff other than the approval steps. Basically, you can do all this stuff from GitHub or from Databricks. I think even some of the stuff like creating the pull request can be automated from Databricks or automated in GitHub, and so you don't have to open it to create the pull request at least. However, unfortunately, at the moment, I haven't set up some nice automatic features that when these changes are made in GitHub, right? So this comment now shows up in our main branch. When this happens, though, it doesn't automatically update Databricks yet, right? So if I go back to Databricks, I go to the main version of our repository in Databricks, right? So this is main. It's the same repository of the main branch. Now, if I go look for the updates I made, go here and open this. You'll notice that this is the same sorting algorithms or methods, functions, but that comment is not in here, even though it is here, right? So it's in this file in the main branch, but it doesn't show up in Databricks yet. So not really a big problem. That's easily fixable. I'll show you in just a second. But this is actually something that can also be automated. I believe you set it up once with a GitHub action, and there's an API available through Databricks that allows you to automatically update these repositories in Databricks as soon as changes are made in GitHub. Now, I don't have that set up for today, so instead what I'll do is I'll go back to this repo. I will show you that we're on the main branch version here, and basically all I have to do is go to Git, open this again, and then pull updates. That's fine. So confirm this. Pulled everything successfully, and now I'll show you that that same file has our comment. And so that's a really, really simple example of how you can do some development operations related stuff in Databricks.